Good morning, Comms Club. Happy Monday. So this morning's video, I have decided to give you a gift that you might be able to use this week as you go about your work or any business that you've got to attend to. Now, today's video is all about my favourite question that just gets stuff done. So I don't know about you, but when I worked in the corporate world, I came across lots of people, good morning Lou, I came across lots of people in the corporate world that I swear they didn't actually want to find solutions for problems. There were situations we were in, we had to deliver results, and I often found myself surrounded by people that would find an obstacle or a hurdle to something being possible rather than a solution. And actually, I learned this question from one of the bosses that I worked with. And good morning, Louise. I've got two Lou's with me, Lou Dillon and Lou Westra. So good morning to the Louises. This morning, Lou, we are talking about the most effective question to get stuff done. It's clear, it's inoffensive, it's open-ended, and it is just genius when you are sick and tired of being presented with situations and hurdles, not situations and solutions. So let me explain what this question is. This question is really, really simple. And the question that I always ask when I am faced with someone that tells me that something is a problem, something can't be done, a deadline has changed, it's no longer possible, we've got an insurmountable problem that we need to deliver or get round, I would say to somebody, okay, so what would it take, ... What would it take? 4 beautiful little words that have the power to move a situation from being impossible to possible, and then from possible to probable. Now, I explain how this little gem works. What happens is when I used to watch this play out with my boss at the time, and someone would walk in and say to her, Central have changed a deadline, we've got to make sure that this new piece of information is communicated to everybody by the end of the week. There's no way that we can hit that deadline, not with everything else going on. And she would let the person run, she'd let them run. And then when they stopped whining, she would just say, okay, I hear you. So what would it take for us to hit the end of the week deadline? And what happened was quite magical, because it stopped the person in their tracks. And instead of saying what couldn't be done, when she said, what would it take to hit that deadline then, the person who had only seen a problem had to then think of potential workarounds. And they would say, well, if we had to get that information communicated by the end of the week, it would mean that we'd have to run a series of meetings. We'd have to communicate probably today to give people notice, that we'd have to run them throughout the lunch breaks, the rest of the week, and then we would reach out to the people that weren't at work and communicate to them by letter or email, and that would really have to be done by Wednesday. But it would be really tight and it would be really uncomfortable. But what had happened in asking someone, okay, but what would it take to make that happen? They had actually mapped out for her, but more so for themselves, the solution if they wanted to take it. And what had appeared to be impossible 2 minutes before was now possible if this course of action was taken. And it was fascinating to watch what happened when somebody would just have to think of what it would take to make it happen, because then they thought it became possible, and you could see them think, okay, it's a lot of work, but I suppose it could be done then. And then she would say, brilliant, so shall we do that then? And what happened was it wasn't, and I love the fact that Emily Louise, you like that phrase, it's so powerful and you can use it in so many situations, because it stopped her from having to pull rank. And sometimes we're in a situation where we don't want to tell people what to do. We would love them to reach their own conclusion that they want to do what we'd like them to do. And this phrase can often help you to influence someone's thinking. It doesn't manipulate them. It just influences their thinking to move them from an impasse where they think something is impossible to something being possible. And then it's the choice to do it. And, you know, the other thing that this does is it helps you as the person asking the question to work out what would need to be the workaround. Because sometimes, you know, you can use this question just as powerfully when it comes to finding out why something doesn't happen at home. For instance, if you have got a child who just puts off and puts off and puts off getting in the shower every evening, it's a battle to get them to get in the bath or get in the shower, and actually you end up having to use your position of authority to demand that they get in the shower, and actually you're bringing on a battle night after night after night, and it just feels like you're at loggerheads. Sometimes to just challenge yourself to think, but what is stopping them from wanting to get into the shower? What's stopping them from wanting to get in the bath? Ask the question, okay, look, what would it take for you to want to get in the shower every night before bed? Do you know what? You never know what to expect that answer to be. It could simply be, I know with Brooke, she fannies about getting ready for bed. And getting her in the shower for a period of time a couple of years ago was a battle. And in the end I said to her, right, what would we have to do to make getting in the shower feel like something you looked forward to? Essentially, what would it take? And she said, well, if you just let me listen to some music while I was in there, it would be fine. And I was like, oh my word, is that all this is? All I needed to do was let you play music from your phone on the windowsill while you were in the shower, and then you would get in there. And that's all it took. And I remember the power of asking this question in a business environment, because it tells you so much about the motivation and the thinking of the person who has got the hurdle. Because remember, in one of my previous videos in March, the trick is to ask more, assume less. If you ask more questions about why you're in a situation, you naturally assume less about why you're there, and it can be really illuminating. And I remember when I used to work for John Lewis, we used to have conversations every year about extended trading hours in December. That's when we used to make most profit, so we used to extend our opening hours. And I used to watch the head of branch and the senior leadership team year after year present the most compelling financial case to trade until 11 o'clock, midnight throughout December. And then they would just ask the wrong question. How do you feel about that? Oh, awkward. What are you expecting to get? We feel that it's absolutely essential to the profit. We're happy to do it. No one's ever going to say that. But instead, one year we changed the question and we said, here is the case, the financial case to trade until 11 o'clock at night in December. And therefore there's an expectation everyone's going to have to do their bit and work until those times. What would make working until 11 o'clock at night feel okay for you? It wasn't how do you feel about working until 11 o'clock. It was what would make it feel okay to be here until 11 o'clock. And I remember we asked that question for the first time, and then there was like a united bum clench, because you think, oh, here we go. We won't want to hear what they've got to say. But do you know what the partners told us? To make it feel okay to be there until 11 o'clock at night, they wanted the dining room to stay open later and serve hot food later, and they wanted us to double man reception so that on the way out they could collect their bags quicker and they weren't queuing up and even later leaving. And we kept waiting for the and there wasn't anything. We had assumed they hated the thought of it. What we found out when we asked them what it would take to make them feel okay to work there, it was the tiniest things, and it helped us to understand what it felt like to be in their shoes, to see the world through their eyes. And this question, what would it take, can be used in so many situations. So many people find it's a real pain in the neck to move house. What would it take for us to be able to exchange at the end of the month? The solicitor might come back with, well, we would have to get all the paperwork signed off by the end of this week for that to be plausible. We'd have to make sure that survey was finished. And suddenly what was not doable becomes possible, and here's the path of action that you could take to get there. And so the action and making it happen then becomes a choice. And the person asking the question didn't have to say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm pulling rank. You are going to do that paperwork. I am moving house at the end of the month. Instead, they just asked a question and stuff had happened. So it can be, what would it take for you to, get all your homework done by the end of the weekend? What would it take for me to be able to get that application passed? What would it take for you to feel happy to, to start your driving lessons? What would it take? What would it take? What would it take? It is a brilliant question for moving someone from impossible to possible, and then from possible to probable. And that's all we want people to do. We want them to start to work out options for themselves and then choose to act. And what I have watched also happen when you get used to this question, you're right, Lou, it is a great question, is that when you are the person who has got the impasse, you've got the impossible situation to deal with, and you think there's no way I'm going to be able to get so-and-so to this club, pick up so-and-so from that club, and actually make that birthday party in time whilst also going food shopping. You come to even the most simple kind of situations where you just can't see a way through, and suddenly you think, okay, but what would it take to make all of those things happen? And then you start to think more creatively. Right, well, okay, I'll do the food shopping online. I will contact so-and-so's friend. I'll ask them to take her to that club. Meanwhile, I'll drop him off. I'll see if somebody else can bring him home, and then I'll go and collect from that party. And suddenly you've got your solution. And you didn't fight it. You didn't object to it. You didn't hate it. And a lot of that, I believe, comes from the fact that you chose. It was your solution, your options, and your decision to follow them through. And that makes all the difference in the world. Louise, you're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. And that's all I actually wanted to share with you about this question. If there's one question that moves situations from impossible to probable, it is the simple question, what would it take? Feel free to use it, share your examples with me, and go forth and have the most productive week that you could possibly have. I will see you back here tomorrow for more March Matters. Okay, bye for now.